Yo, what's going on? Week 3. Hey, we made it.
Week 3, we here, baby.
12 only, where if it ain't Big 12 basketball, we ain't talking about it. So let's get straight to it. What we got?
Let's get right to it, man. We'll start with the weekly recap. Really good slate of games this week like we normally have in the Big 12. Started off with the big Monday game, the 75-70 win, Kansas State over Kansas in Manhappiness, right? Watched a lot of that game in the Octagon of Doom, and it was really good to see Kansas State break that slide and get back to a big win. Then Kansas couldn't finish. Moved to Houston, Oklahoma State. Houston beats Oklahoma State in Houston 79-63.
Kelvin's ready to go home.
Kelvin was ready to go home. He did get tossed out of that one early. A message he maybe was sending to the referees, maybe to his team. We can talk about that a little bit more later on. Iowa State beats Texas in Austin 70-65. Texas overcame a big deficit to cut the gap a little bit, but it is easy to kind of come back. It's hard to kind of come back and win, right? Oklahoma State beats BYU in Norman 82-66, and then we close it out with Baylor topping Texas Tech 79-73 in Waco.
Yep.
Of those games last week, which one was kind of your favorite that you kind of want to dive into and talk about a little bit?
Man, I'm a point guard. I'm a point guard to the day I DIE. So, anytime I see, good on good, tough on tough, as we say,
tough on tough.
I'm with it. So, to me, the Texas Tech Baylor,
yes,
that was the game. And, there are two things that stood out to me. It's crazy. Like, when you've been around basketball at a high level, you just have a feel for momentum.
Yep.
So, I'm watching the game, and Missy.
He's Missy.
Big fella from
he's Missy.
That's making a lot. He's making himself a lot of money. Will he be in school next year?
We can talk about this more.
Okay.
But I have seen some chatter on him being in conversation about being drafted because of his progression. So we'll see what happens.
But one of the things, and when we talk about him with the Kansas game, is he's got great feet, and so a lot of times they will throw it to him on the elbow or out on the perimeter and give him space to attack the big's feet. So he does that, rips through, just unbelievable dunk out of nowhere.
Praise always felt.
After that, I feel like Texas Tech never recovered. Just one play, and I was like, that's it. That's that play. I was like, not a lot of teams would come back from that. And after that, Texas Tech struggled to score. But within that, to me, the reason they lost, they had late in the second half, they had 4 turnovers within a 2 or 3 minute stretch.
Yep, and Baylor was able to push it out a little bit.
You can't win on the road when you give up 4 turnovers, especially on the road. But now they've got that one of those arenas where they're right on top of you, and it's just like a powder keg waiting to explode. You can't overcome that.
No.
I think that I expect more. We expect more from a team of Texas Tech when you've got 2 pretty much lead guards in Tucson and Isaacs. But that was the game.
No doubt about it. It was a great game, and like I said, the fanfare and the pageantry between Grant McCasland returning home to Baylor, where he helped kind of build that program a little bit with Scott Drew. So I was glad to see Baylor get a home win. Texas Tech was able to walk away with a loss, but they were able to recover this past weekend, as we're getting to. But it'll be interesting to see, like we said, these matchups every single game, game in, game out, tough on tough, to see how this league progresses. We're getting into the time we talked about in February where teams who are fighting for a championship are fighting. The teams who are kind of in the middle are jockeying for position for the tournament, conference tournament and NCAA tournament. And then the ones who aren't having such a good year as they want to have, how are they going to continue to respond? Are they going to compete? Are they going to pack it in? What kind of way will they end their season? So I think as we go into February and continue to progress, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, no doubt.
So now we'll jump into the weekend's games. But I want to start it with a quote like I normally do. This one comes from the great Kelvin Sampson. The team that is in first place today, 2 weeks from now, may be in 10th. Or the team that is in 10th or 9th, 10 days from now, may be in first or second.
Yep.
And this lets you know how jam-packed the Big 12 is in that second to 10th place range, which is separated by 2 or 3 games. Houston is the first to 8 wins, so they've kind of separated themselves a little bit. And the bottom of the league has kind of separated themselves a little bit too, but in that second to 10th place right now, 2 to 3 games separates them, and it just speaks to the parity of the league.
Yeah, no doubt, and I think that's what makes it fun to cover this league, to be a fan of this league, makes it, I don't know if it makes it fun to be a participant in the league, but it's a competitive experience because of that.
No doubt.
And I think that the Big 12, what makes it the best league in the country is not because it has the best team in the country. You know, obviously, like when you talk about the best teams, you're talking about UConn and Purdue.
Yeah.
But in terms of the best competition, the best quality, you know, the best depth, the best matchups. I mean, anytime you since we've been doing this, have you been like, oh, I'm not going to watch that game because it's not worth watching?
Not at all.
You know, and I think as you watch the game, obviously you watch your team, you know, like who's ever watching, they're watching their team. But when you take a step away and watch the games in its totality, the thing that you appreciate is just the competitive excellence. And that makes it hard from a collective standpoint to win 2-3 games in a row. It is hard to do that in this league. And then even individually, it is hard to string together 3-4 really good games in a row. I mean, there's so many quality players that have hit their walls, whether it's, you know, you talk about Pops Isaac or you talk about Trey Tennyson. They're not bad players at all. It's just to perform at such a high level is a lot of times because of the quality of coaching and competition is an unrealistic standard.
Consistency is the word. I think you look for that as a coach, look for that as a player. And because of what you said, the coaching, the talent level, going on the road, playing in hostile environments, the consistency is tough.
Yep.
So the ones that can do it and do it at a high level obviously are really, really good at this game, really, really good at coaching, and really, really good at finding ways to be successful. So with that being said, we'll go through the games of the weekend. So from yesterday, from Saturday, February 10th. Iowa State defeats TCU 71-59, and we'll talk about that game in a little more detail later on. Texas beats West Virginia, and like we just talked about the parity, one of the biggest lopsided victories that we've seen in the league.
Right.
They beat them 94-58.
Yeah.
And as this progresses,
what was it?
94-58.
Yeah.
So just
they knocked them out early.
Yeah.
You know, like they knocked, just real quick, I know we're not going to stay on that, but what I saw is they knocked them out early. And when I saw Texas, they looked like TCU Texas and not Iowa State Texas.
Yeah, 100%.
Texas, they are at their best when they're getting deflections, when they're getting in the passing lanes, right? And when, you know, Mitchell and Weaver are getting breakaways. I don't know if you saw that breakaway that Mitchell had. It was unbelievable. But that's when they're at their best and they feed off of that, and that's what they did. I think it was a combination of Texas, you know, coming out the way that they need to come out. And West Virginia, unfortunately, like you said, was one of those teams that maybe their competitive character was compromised a little bit. They're at the bottom of the standings. They're on the road. They got hit with a quick knockout punch, and Texas took over. And right, as a coach, that's what you in the locker room. If it's your scout and you're Texas, you're like, hey, don't let these guys hang around.
Yeah, 400%.
Let's hit them in the mouth early and consistently because they're at the bottom. They're teams at the bottom of the barrel this late in the year. They have a tendency to fold. They're not made of the right stuff.
So we'll see if they're able to bounce back in the next game. Houston beats Cincinnati in Cincinnati 67-62.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech beats UCF 66-59. Kansas Baylor 64-61. Bedlam, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State 66-62. And then the final game of the night in Provo, Utah, BYU best Kansas State 72-66.
Mm-hmm.
So as we continue to talk about some of these games, let's dive into what we call the 12-only elite encounter, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about the Baylor-Kansas matchup in Lawrence. For KU, 18 straight home wins, right? As we continue to say, just a tough place to play overall. Teams don't go in there and win very often. Hunter Dickinson, 15 points. He got off to a great start. But he kind of stymied later through the game. Harris Jr., 14, KJ Adams, 13, and your boy Furphy came out with 11. Great win with Kevin McCullough being out, right?
Right.
I think with a apparent knee injury. Not sure what the detail is, but hopefully bruised knee. Hopefully he can get back soon.
Yep.
The storyline of the game for me was how they forced Baylor to 21 turnovers and scored 17 points. They have Texas Tech on Monday. Baylor, 21 turnovers like we just talked about. They played even a lot of main categories, but when you got 21 TOs and they score 17 points, it's hard to win, even if you do manage to do a lot of other things really, really well. Yeeves Missy, who we just talked about, 21 points and 8 rebounds, versus Hunter Dickinson, right, who we consider to be a really elite big in the country. For him to have this type of outing against him is pretty good, even though it wasn't a losing effort.
Sure.
Jacoby Walters, 17 points, doing what he does. Down by double digits with 7 minutes to play, they closed the gap with a chance to win. So it shows the competitive character that you talked about Baylor. And then they got Oklahoma on Tuesday. Kind of give me what you think you saw in that game and why Kansas was able to come away victorious.
Yeah. First of all, I think I really like Baylor. The more I watch them, the more I enjoy them. And we need to also mention that Love didn't play.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of which, that would be my underdog if he played, because he doesn't get the love. He's leading them in scoring in the Big 12, and I got to meet him the year that he hurt his ACL. So happy to see him bounce back. But when they have their full team, I really enjoy the way that they play, because they've got 4 playmaking guards that are spaced the floor, that can make an open shot and can pass, and are willing to share the ball with one another. And they just let Missy just pick and roll hard and finish around the rim and just play off that. It's a pick your poison. But yeah, I think this was as one of your favorite words. I heard Greenberg say it. It was a rock fight.
Rock fight.
And these teams are made of the right stuff, clearly. I think that 2 of the last 3 national championships was them. But I believe if I was a betting man, which I'm not, the COVID year, one of those 2 teams was going to win a national title.
It was looking that way.
You know what I mean? So you're talking about potentially 3 of the last 4 national titles. So you know that one team getting down, they're not going to stay down.
No, not at all.
And that's what you saw. Kansas got off to a good start. Baylor gets back in the game. Then Kansas goes on another run. I think midway through the second half, Kansas goes up 8 or 9, and you look like, Fall Gallen's about to do what Fall Gallen does, and Baylor comes right back. But the turnovers, we just, you and I are both in the, card-carrying members of the Ray J fan club. And,
we are, for sure.
Like at the end of the day, you just kind of like the guards at Texas Tech. I believe he had, 5 or 6 turnovers. Uncharacteristic, and you just can't overcome that, especially when you're down a man. With that being said, I think that they have to feel good, especially because with Missy.
Use Missy.
With him, I mean, he gets better and better and better, and he is a matchup nightmare. I think that he kind of gave Houston a game plan, because Houston has athletic bigs. I don't think that they need to double Dickinson. I think you're doing him a favor when you have an athletic big with size. You can play behind if you need to and just kind of disturb his shot, and they did that.
Force him to score over.
They did that. Dickinson had 13 points early, and then he was ghost. He was silent to the rest of the way. He had a lot to do with that. But then on the other end, he is hard to guard. He's got great footwork. I mean, his footwork to me mirrors a lot of Joel Embiid, because what he does on the perimeter, he can catch it on the perimeter or even the elbow. They give him space, and he does a great job of getting you off balance and either blowing by you and having a crazy dunk like he did against Tech, or dribbling into his post-up and finishing around the rim. So I think that even though a great win for Kansas, I think that Baylor, even in the midst of the loss, I think that especially when they get healthy, they're a team that can make a great run.
No doubt. I think as you look at this, as a coach, you look at that box score and you say to yourself, okay, what does this look like? Because box score is analytics, right? You have your advanced analytics, but at your basic analytics, what does box score look like? And you look at the out-rebounded. They out-rebounded Kansas by 17, right? You like that stat as a coach, right? But then you go to the shooting. You shoot the ball well. The score, you lose by a few, and it comes back to that turnover battle. And Coach Drew mentioned in the post-game press conference, he mentioned about how he felt the spacing was off a little bit, right? And to your point, typically when they have those guards on the floor with Yeeves manning the post and rolling hard and setting screens, are able to have really good spacing. Seems like it might have been thrown off a little bit yesterday, so it'll be interesting to see how they kind of correct it.
Right.
Especially with Coach Drew mentioning it in the post-game, because when you don't have good spacing, it allows for that defense to shrink that floor and make the driving lanes tough and make the rotations a little bit easier and be able to create a little bit more havoc. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of bounce back. Baylor, even though I think they probably like the game they played a little bit, they feel like they clean it up a little bit, they'll be able to progress and continue.
Well, I mean, they're an open shot away from winning that game. I mean, and so to wrap it up on my end on this game, one, Kansas was extremely, extremely fortunate And the thing that you like, while you say Baylor's walking away, like we could have won, but we should feel good. Kansas, on the other hand, they're saying we won the game, but hey, we got some things to clean up because you cannot, make an error, especially that late in the game, that almost allowed Baylor to win. I'm talking about helping off a corner shooter. Even if those are your principles, which we both agree they're probably not. They did it twice. One time they gave up a shot, but then the second one was to send the game into overtime. So even if those are your principles, you got to adjust your principles to a situation in the game.
Situational basketball.
Time and score. You're down. You're up 3, and you help off a corner shooter and basically give them an open shot. Those things can't happen. Another thing, just continue to be impressed with KJ Adams' ability to pass. He's truly a point forward, and you think about the pressure because his tenacity and obviously his natural gifts, he can go get a rebound. But the other thing, I think the game within the game to look for, the encouraging thing, the last 2 games, he's getting more comfortable shooting off the short roll, which is going to open up something he does, his passing. You can tell, like, Bill Self and his staff, they develop at a high level. I remember years back I went and watched the practice when the Morris twins were there.
That's dope, man. That's my era.
Yeah, and I saw them at, like, their first practice. And then I went back and watched them again, and I was like, these aren't the same people. Mm-hmm. So there's a history. That's a program that develops. Well, the evolution of his development is scoring off the short roll now. He's got the push shot, and he's 6 or 7, I believe, and he's getting more comfortable shooting that shot, which I think bodes well for them moving forward as well.
No doubt about it. It gives them an extra weapon. When you're able to create that short roll and make the right decision, whether it be scoring, passing, it gives you another comfortable playmaker on the floor.
Why is, like, real quick, just impromptu, kind of from a coach's standpoint, why is it so effective and so potent to your offense when you have somebody that is as capable as he is on a short roll?
Because you're taking advantage what you want to do at all times is create an advantage. You see the dribble handoffs, you see the pitches, you see the ball screens. Everything you see is designed to create an advantage offensively. So in a pick and roll situation where you can hit that short roll, you are rolling into an advantage offensively, whether it be a 3-on-2 on the backside or 3-on-2 on the backside typically, right? So if you can make the right decision, whether it be to drop it off or to go score it, to attack, to pull up, then what you're doing is you are taking what the defense gives you. You hear coaches talk about that all the time. Don't force things, take what they give us. They're putting 2 on the ball. They're giving us a short roll. Now it's up to us to capitalize.
Yeah.
And if we have a guy that can make that shot, they can make the right pass, they can go finish, then we are taking advantage of what the defense is giving us.
Yeah. You know what I do to, like, encourage, to incentivize young players I work with? I say, because every big wants to be a point guard. Yeah. It's like, this is your opportunity to be a point guard in just a smaller space.
The ball does not care what makes the play. That's what we used to always tell our guys, right? Get off the ball, hit the open man, and it's our job to have these guys in the right spaces and situations to where they can make the plays. So if we're running the pick and roll and we're encouraging the short roll, hopefully we have a guy in that position who can make the right play.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I talk to play like young players all the time, right, about a lot of times what we're saying and what they hear are 2 different things. Yeah. We tell them to be aggressive. When you tell a young player, you got to explain. Be aggressive to them means look to shoot. No. I want you to be aggressive at all times. Aggressively make the right play. It's almost like when you have the ball in your hands in basketball, it's almost like being a running quarterback. Yeah. You got to decide, am I going to keep it and call my own number? Is that what the defense is giving me? Or am I going to pass?
It comes with experience.
Yeah.
And that's what KJ Adams is getting right now.
Yeah.
It comes with experience. So now we'll go to what we call the 12-only tactical tilt. Okay. Right?
So I got a question.
Go ahead.
Do we have a copyright for all these, man? I don't want nobody like stealing our stuff, man.
No, I think these words are pretty much commonly used. But the way you put them together, hopefully it gives the audience a little bit of a chuckle. The tactical tilt, right? So now we're talking about some strategy and how we kind of figure good coaching on both sides help lead the team to a win. TCU at number 14, Iowa State names. Number 14, Iowa State's 14th straight home win, right? So they're just like that Hilton Magic.
That Hilton Magic.
Similar to Kansas, right? People are going in there and losing because it's a tough place to play with a good team. Defense set the tone, right? They held TCU scoreless for 7 minutes in the game. hard to overcome that. King with 15 points, Gilbert with 13 and 7, and they have West Virginia on Monday. TCU, Emmanuel Miller, a guy who has progressed offensively to a great degree this year with 18 points. They only led one time in the game early in the first half.
Yep.
They shot 50% from the free throw line, right? That we'll talk about that in more detail later on, but that'll hurt you on the road for sure too. And they have Cincinnati next. So what do you think about that game? Kind of what were your takeaways?
Well, first of all, man, just the Hilton Magic is real. That was one of the dopest things that I've experienced in sports, is just being able to be a part of that. I mean, at the college level, man, the year I was there, man, we could have been playing Ames High School, and it was gonna be sold out.
They love hoops,
and I'm happy for that fan base because they support, and they deserve to have, such a good product. Like, if you play hard for them and you play the right way, they're gonna more than reciprocate that. And the Hilton Magic is back to being Hilton Magic because of what TJ's been able to do.
Yeah.
I think with TJ and what he's done, this team, I just respect so much the way he went about building his culture and his program. Defense, team first, grit, all these things. And he was able to win with less than offense. I think the thing that makes them so unique and even makes Hilton such a more challenging place is because now they have what, Clark Kellogg always says, that spurtability now. They can be explosive. They can score in waves. They've got guys that can shoot the three. They got some athletic guys and stuff like that. But they haven't compromised that foundation of defense, team defense. Yeah. And I think that's why they won. I mean, huge shout out to them. They are a crazy game away from winning 3 big games, because that Baylor game could have went either way.
Man.
A fumbled ball even from winning.
Sure could have.
And then how they bounced back to the Texas game and responded. But their defense, I mean, I sent you some clips earlier, and maybe we'll probably insert it, but I mean, how many handoffs do they blow up? How many they do as good a job as anybody at walling up and contesting without fouling everything. And it has to be so exhausting to play against them because of the multiple efforts, the recovery, and then because they contest shots, but they contest passes as well. So now, because you contest passes, now when you kick out, it's not a direct pass, it's a little more air. So now I'm not out of position on the rotation. But I mean, anybody that appreciates, and my dad coached for Eddie Sutton, Oklahoma State. So like, that's just in me to appreciate great team defense. That's unbelievable. So I just enjoy watching them play.
No doubt about it. I think that as I'm looking at it from perspective of coaching staff as well, obviously Iowa State did a great job of holding these guys to 44% shoot from 2 and 29 from 3. But as I'm a coach, I'm looking to say, hey, we shot 50% from the free throw line.
Right.
If we just make 8 more of these, right, we have a chance. We put a little bit more pressure on the game from Iowa State's perspective. So as I walk away from this game, obviously Iowa State's defense has been phenomenal, right, for the majority of the year. And they have made a staple, which in my opinion has been pretty cool to see the maturation of TJ, because when I competed against him when he was at South Dakota State, their offense was at a high level, right? But he had offensive talent in that league. Mike Dama, who I believe is an all-time college league scorer.
Yeah, he was like that.
So he had Mike Dama on his team, and they were able to create a system that made Mike Dama thrive. And he's been able to do that offensively everywhere he's been. But now, defense being the calling card, that, like you said, the guys, they move when the ball's in the air, right? They close out, they guard their yard, 1 or 2 bounces, and they are crazy in the gaps. And when you put all those things together, and then you can guard the rim as well with their wall-ups, Robert Jones back there being big, it allows them to have a really good defensive integrity and to create games where they stymie the offense of their opponent. So
they just break your spirit.
To break your spirit.
And kind of like Houston, you said that on our first podcast, you can't replicate. If your team doesn't play like that, you can't replicate in practice as you prepare.
You can't.
The multiple efforts, the contesting, and all that, and it just wears on you. And then if you're not, if you're not seeing a ball go through the net, you know what I'm saying, and they making you work, it just, that just affects you mentally as well.
No doubt. And then you add to the fact that they're pretty efficient. Yesterday they shot 50-42, right?
Yeah.
50 from 2, 42 from 3.
Well, they share the ball. They play together. Name a more connected team in the Big 12 and in the country. They play for one another. I don't see any over-dribbling. Don't see any egos. I don't see any bad passes. I think that one of the things, too, we're getting into that point of the year where you start seeing teams and players get figured out. And then that's where the teams that ultimately, make runs in March. Because I think that happens to everybody. And I think TCU has maybe hit that stretch, both collectively but also individually. Like when I look at the last two games, when I look at Tennyson and I look at Nelson, they're shooting a lower percentage and they're not even getting as many shots because teams are making them work. They're figuring them out. They're adjusting their coverages and that. And so as you watch these games, then because Jamie Dixon's a great coach, those are great players, it's fun to see them go through that, figure out what they need to figure out and make adjustments moving forward.
No doubt about it. And that's what we talked about. It's hard for people to have consistent efforts night in, night out in this league because the coaching is so good, the players are so good, and just the consistency of being able to play somewhere on the road like that is tough. So we'll see how they bounce back, and then we'll see what Iowa State does when they get on the road again. All right, the next game we'll talk about, the 12-only curveball clash. So a game that kind of gave us a different maybe outcome or sequence than what we thought may happen. And I'm going to talk about the Bedlam game, right? Like the second to last Bedlam is obviously as Oklahoma goes to the SEC. But when you talk about this matchup, it's always a gritty, chaotic, high-intensity, traditional matchup, and it didn't disappoint yesterday, right? Oklahoma on a 2-game win streak. Moore was the only double-digit scorer with 15, but they got 29 bench points. And in the game where they only scored, I think they scored 66. Yeah, well, they scored 66. 29 is a pretty good number that you want to get. Resilient effort. They were down late in the second half, but they were able to kind of pull it out, and they go to Baylor. Oklahoma State, once again, led by Javon Small, a really good player who hasn't had the team success they probably would wish for, but he's quietly having a good season individually. Youth was a factor, right? Like they have been for other games for Oklahoma State. Youth once again showed his head. They are 2-8 now in games decided by 5 points or less, right? Now, obviously, this game was decided by more, but they're started by 4 points. So 2-8 now in games decided by 5 points or less. OU held them at 31% from the field and 17 from three, right? So great defense from Oklahoma State. But the free throw line helped them stay in the game, 21 for 28. And they go to BYU next Saturday. They got the bye week. When you think about when you think about Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, what do you think about that game and how does it kind of stack up?
Yeah, I think, what'd you say Oklahoma State shot?
They shot 31% from the floor and 17 from three.
Yeah. And then Oklahoma beat them on the free throw line, got to the free throw line. So, I mean, you're just not going to win that game. And I think that what you just said, I mean, I'm from Stillwater. Obviously grew up in that program, raised me. My dad was a coach there from 92 to 99. So, man, I have so many fond memories of Bedlam.
Yeah.
And all that. And so, one, I was glad to see the atmosphere be dope because, man, the Bedlam I grew up in, like it was like there was no Oklahoma City Thunder back then. It was like that was it. And that was a highlight of the week, and it was packed. And so, like, it was great to see that. But at the end of the day, when you have, I think that they have more freshmen logging more minutes than anybody in the Big 12, and it's by far.
Trial by fire right now for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, so when you talk about 2-8 in close games, well, that's what happens when you have freshmen.
You got youth.
So those you just got to take your L's, learn from your experiences, and get better. And let's not forget that their most decorated, most experienced Big 12 player, whether it was with Kansas or with his experience at Oklahoma State, is down. So they just, I just think like we've said before. I mean, it's a tough deal. This is a tough league, and just to see them continue to show up and compete, it'll bode well for them next year. Forward. But that's just what it is.
No doubt about it. It's high opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Right. These young players, the youthful players, are getting the opportunity, but it's coming at a high cost.
Yeah.
And they're losing some of these close games. So as they continue to progress and get better, it'll be interesting to see how these lumps now will formulate to hopefully triumphs a year or two down the road when they're thinking back on these. Oklahoma breaks the streak of Baylor, right? They were lost 3 straight. So they were able to bounce back and get a win 3 straight in the second to last one. So it'll be interesting to see how this game goes when they go to Stillwater.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's always, when you get the rivalry games, tough on tough, the emotion involved, it can go either way for either team.
Yeah.
So those are the highlights that we have for the games, right? And we'll do that every single week. We'll have the curveball clash. We'll have the tactical tilt, and then we'll have the elite encounter, talking
like
about
that,
the games that we like.
Yeah.
So anything you got to add in terms of the games of the week, what you liked from the Big 12 basketball, what you want to see, what continue to see?
Man, just recognizing how hard it is to win on the road, and we talk about that all the time, but specifically with the venues. I was telling you off air, man, you think about it, the Big 12 has done a good job, in terms of the schools that didn't have venues, creating them. Within the last 10 years, TCU renovated theirs to make it a fan-friendly deal. But now you've got Baylor, and they're right on top of you there. You've got Houston.
Yep.
In all these tough venues.
Texas.
That's the other one I was going to say. Texas, the Moody Center. Let me ask you this. We didn't prepare for this, but I think it's worth exploring, going down a rabbit hole. Obviously, we know it's hard to win on the road.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to prepare to give yourself a chance to win leading up to going to play at a Iowa State or at a Texas, or even let's say it's like Oklahoma State, where it's just a big game where they're waiting for you. They're right on top of you. Fans is gonna be crazy, camping out. What do you do to get your team ready to go play in an environment like that?
I think that, from my perspective, in my opinion, that you want to treat every game and every situation like it's a normal one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you do people a disservice sometimes when you aren't all the way truthful.
Mm-hmm.
in the respect of, okay, hey, look, we're going to Lawrence or we're going to Ames, and it's going to be hostile, right? It's going to be like an environment you've never been in. You don't want to scare anybody. You don't want to intimidate anybody, but you want to give them the truth. You want to give them the real. You want them to understand what they're walking into. So preparation, just like you prepare for your team, what to do defensively, what to do offensively, what to do in certain situations, you also want to prepare them for the environment that they're walking into. So that's conversation, that's film, that's understanding, because like what kids do nowadays is, if you don't let them know what's going on, you don't communicate, they're going to go get the information from somewhere else,
mm-hmm.
right? And then when they get the information from somewhere else, you can't control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So as a coach, I think you're trying to control the narrative of what they're seeing, how they're seeing it, how they're intaking the information by being truthful but not wanting to intimidate anybody.
Yeah.
And then you're going about like it's a normal game, right? You're preparing the way you always have. As athletes, as coaches, as competitors, you are creatures of your habit. You are successful because of the routines you create day in and day out. So you want to make sure you create a routine that creates comfort, that creates confidence, that creates preparation, and then combine that with them understanding the environment they're walking into. And I think that's how you give yourself the best opportunity to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely agree with all of that. And I think that it's more so, what do you think about this? I'm putting pressure on you more like in a workout in the spring or the summer or the early fall to prepare you to go to Fall Gallon.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm losing my crap when you don't come and meet when you don't come and meet the pass, when
Yes.
you make a lazy pass, when you're off target with the pass, when you don't get your legs into your jump shot, when you miss 2 shots in a row because you're being careless.
Everything that you're doing until the point where you play the game is in preparation for that game.
Habits, yeah.
So 100%. So in certain situations, but if you're doing it the way that we envision we should do it, right, then everybody understands that what we do in that summer, what we do in the early fall, what we do in practice is preparing us.
The standard is
the standard is the standard. So we're not going to change it.
Right. No,
because we're going
if we do it every day, so now it feels
So now
normal.
it's natural.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like now it's just like my standard is that play, is your mentality, is your approach when we go to Fall Gallon. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like I talk to kids all the time, like when we're talking, like, so, hey, we're talking and you're communicating. Like, is that the way you talking? Is that gonna work at Fall Gallon when they, blasting, the EDM music at the media and all that? Like, so you better talk like that now. So, like you said, it feels normal. All we got to do is what we've done.
Is what we've done.
Yeah.
In certain instances, to your point, maybe like a small antidote that coaches may use. You may pump music in the loudspeaker.
Yeah.
Right. You may make the guys communicate only to themselves, not being able to hear the coaching staff, so they figure things out.
Don't call fouls.
Don't call fouls. Makes them be tough. Right. Play what I think Kansas State calls it 5 to grind. You play 5-minute games where you may have one timeout and the coaches don't coach, but the players, they coach themselves, they police themselves, they play the game. So there's small anecdotal things that you do that you try to execute. But at the end of the day, the standard, the preparation to preparation, and you want to make sure you control the narrative that your players are getting so that there's no intimidation. It's only factual.
Right.
So
Yeah, I like that.
nice. A good question. What a good rabbit hole. Like you said, it's our show. We can go down a rabbit hole. So now we'll go to the portion of the show where we go weekly awards. And I'm going to start with you. Obviously, your book is coming out soon. I think February 20th.
February 20th. Make sure you
20th.
cop a copy. Let's go.
February 20th. We're going to talk about somebody who we feel is an underdog. Maybe that's not getting the shine they deserve, or that is kind of somebody who is blossoming into becoming a player that you like and that you recognize. So who's your underdog for the week?
I'm making a last-minute change. I was going to say Oklahoma as a team, but I got to be a homer and go with Iowa State as a team.
Okay.
Reason being is like I talk about it, shameless plug for the book, Underdog. You can get it at Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, where else? Amazon, and Walmart online. But one of the things to be an underdog is a competitor that appears to have no chance to win, is I talk frequently about emotional toughness, and which, leads to just having a competitive resiliency about you. And so for Iowa State to win a game in a heartbreaking fashion, stay on the road, and go to Texas that was...
lose a game in a heartbreaking fashion.
Lose a game, excuse me.
At Baylor.
When
the half-court shot was waved off.
On a half-court shot. To come back and respond to that like a true underdog should, and win on the road when they stayed on the road at Texas coming off arguably their best performance, and just like have put together a defensive masterpiece. And what do we keep talking about? The consistency to come back against TCU and double down on that. TCU didn't play midweek, right? I don't believe that they did.
No, they were off midweek.
So they lost the game, had a week to prepare, and you hold them to the best fast break team in the country. You put together back-to-back performance to hold them to 59. So that's my underdog performance of the week.
Well, and I think it's great, right? Underdog performance, but they number 14 team in the country.
Right, I understand that, but they not being talked about a lot. We did what up, Britt? We had a pre-production meeting with my sister Brittany, who is, first of all, I don't know, that she's a better basketball player than me. Got the best shot of all three of us.
I don't know about that.
I'm telling you, Dwight. But she is a diehard Kansas fan, Big 12 fan. And she said in her pre-production questions that she was asking at Iowa State, even that's the case, they're not being talked about enough nationally.
So we're going to give them a little push.
I think they're top 10 good.
Shout out to the Iowa State Cyclones, Coach TJ, JR over there, those guys, man. Keep it up.
Yep. Micah, too. What up?
So you got the Underdog Award. Mine is a lunch pail and hard hat. If you follow this show, I love that saying, right?
Right.
That's one thing that it's toughness, it's consistency. It's just the overall ability to do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way it should get done. And I have used this term ever since I coached a kid named Marcus Georges Hunt, who now is playing in Europe but had a couple years in the NBA. He's one of the best players I've ever coached. And that kid always had his lunch pail and his hard hat because he showed up to work. So for me, this week is Yves Missy. 21-8, 29 minutes against Kansas, against Hunter Dickinson, who many consider to be a great big man in the country, let alone the Big 12. And what I love is that he's embraced being a five-man. He's screening, he's rolling, he's catching the ball, he's reversing it.
Got great hands.
And he's doing what he's supposed to do in the confines of his role, right? So that's the first thing that I love about him, is that he is being a star in his role and is paying dividends. The second thing I love is that he's holding, he's grabbing, he's being physical, all within the confines of the rules to make it tough on people. Right? He made it tough on Hunter Dickinson yesterday. After Dickinson got off to a really good start, he made him score over him. He was physical with him. He was aggressive with him. And I think it impacted him. Although, obviously, Kansas won the game. But I think that matchup, as I was watching, he impacted that matchup with Hunter Dickinson. Right? And then the last thing I love about the man is that he sprints not only the offense, he sprints also the defense.
Yeah.
Right? His ability to move up and down the floor offensively and defensively is something you don't always see from big guys. You see him sprint to get that ball, to get deep post position, to get lob opportunities, to get deep steals offensively. But the defensive sometimes can be a jog.
I love that.
This guy sprints both ways.
And he plays with so much passion.
And he embraces that sprint. So it's very, very refreshing to see another. We talked about Dickinson being a true 5-man. To see another 5-man getting some love because the way he plays. It's not flashy, it ain't dashy, but it's tough, it's consistent, it's competitive, and it makes an impact. He impacts the Baylor Bears winning.
And he has a passion about him.
Yes.
Yeah, he has a passion like every possession.
No doubt about it. So we'll transition now to the question segment of our show. When you were at Iowa State, right, you were in charge of all the player development.
Right.
Talk to me from a behind-the-curtain perspective of what does player development look like right now, early February, as you transition into the last few weeks of the year. What are you trying to do and accomplish in your individual workouts and your film sessions, mentally and physically? Yeah,
no, I'm glad you said that. I think that at this point in time, you know, when who's ever the player development guy, has being able to just check their temperature and support them and get a pulse for them and create a safe space for them to open up mentally is huge, because at this time of the year, you know, there's a lot going on. And so you just want to make sure that, one, is there anything off the court? And then it's an opportunity to spend enough time with them to know when something's off, and then you can figure out, like, if it's something you need to handle, or let the coaching staff know, or let the teammates know. One of my mentors, Chauncey Billups, you know, he told me sometimes one of his tricks was to even jump into a workout with them. Yeah. Just because now that they're more likely to open up. So there would be some times that we would do that. But yeah, so just I had like a mental list of what they needed, you know, like things that I wanted to do, or just things. And so a mental check-in for sure. But then the other part of it is their body. You have to consider their bodies at this point in time. So everything we did is matter of fact. It is very specific to their role. Probably warming up a little bit with ball handling, you know, for, you know, 7 minutes. And then after that, just getting shots, like finishes around the rim specific to how they finish. And then just whatever their actions are, you know what I mean? Like if it's a guard, you know, a lot of stuff off a ball screen where they can incorporate a pass and then relocate or get into a finish, and then just, you know, shots off of lifts and getaways and whatnot, specific to how they play. Same things with bigs, and then get out of there and just make sure they're in the right place, because, as you know, a lot of people probably don't realize is they're still going to have a practice after that. So to make sure they're in the right place to go have a great practice, make sure that they understand, and then give them space to see if, you know, I think that, you know, in our experiences working with professional players, they're more vocal than you. And so just letting them, what do you see? 100%. What do you need to work on? Are there any questions? And then just go have a great practice. Exactly. It's always a collaborative effort, right, when you're doing player development, especially at this point in the year. How's your body feeling? What do you want to work on? What do you see? Here's what I see. Let's put together something that's impactful, 20, 30 minutes. Let's get in and get out. Right. So that efficient piece. The efficient piece, 100%. Yeah. All right. So my question for you, you know, like I hard coach the kids that I work with. I've seen it. And here's the thing about hard coaching. People don't respond to hard coaching. Like you gotta love harder than you hard coach. Yes. Man, I just made that up. I kind of lied. I might have to tweet that. That was good. You know what I'm saying? And so when I see players respond positively to hard coaching, a lot of people are like, man, Kelvin Sampson's crazy. I see, man, he must really love his players, and they know it. Because if they play hard for you and they take your hard coaching, the time that you've invested into that, because if you hard coach somebody and you're not that, they're going to quit. So my question to you is, how can you hard coach? How are you able to hard coach a player in today's era of the transfer portal? I can transfer in whatever I want, you know, like just a different player in the way that they were raised and grew up. How is somebody like Kelvin Sampson or Bill Self, how are they able to hard coach them? Man, I think that's a great question, and obviously I can't speak for those great coaches, but from my perspective of coaching, I can tell you what I think. The age-old saying that they don't care what you know until you know how much you care. Okay. Right? As cliche as that may be, just like people talk about culture all the time, it's really, really important. It's really, really impactful. So to your point,
You got to love these guys to be able to coach them hard. They have to know you care about them. And how do they know you care about them? Right? I think that's where you have to figure out as a coach is what makes these guys tick? How do they know you care about them? Is it because you care about what happens on the floor?
Yeah.
Is it because you invested yourself in their success?
Yeah.
Is it because you know their goals? That's something that you figure out as a coach to be able to coach each individual player hard. But the one thing you do is you hold them accountable for what the standard is. Yeah. You can't let anybody off the hook.
Yeah.
And when you coach them hard, anybody. And when you coach them hard that way, the respect comes.
Yeah.
Right? The desire to please you comes as a coach because they know that you are fully invested in their success, whatever they think their successes may be.
Yeah.
And when they know that, then they run through a wall.
They run through a wall.
But that comes from communication.
It takes time. And authenticity, right?
Authenticity, genuineness, communication, and then it can't just happen because I'm the head coach, you do what I say. There are some relationships where that can happen. But for the most part, what do you want to accomplish? What does it look like? How can I help you get there? And then I'll hold you accountable for that.
Yeah.
Because it's not what I said you wanted. This is what you said you wanted.
Right.
And then when we work that way, and then everybody else can fall in line, and it becomes something where everybody else kind of comes together, it becomes special.
Yeah. And I think that, my mentors, speaking of Bill Self, just being able to be around him when I was a young kid, he and my dad worked together, and then seeing him when I go watch practice, like from afar, and I think that's where a lot of young coaches some coaches, maybe not even young, they don't see the relationship. Like they have a coaching guy that they look up to that hard coaches, but they don't see the time that they put in. You earn the right to do that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Right. I think the other thing is one of the things that I've always tried to do is if practice is from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I'm a hard coach you from 2 to 4. But at 4:01, like whatever happens on the court, I got to leave that on the court because this kid has problems.
Yep.
He may be getting canceled on social media. He may have broken up with his girlfriend. His parents may be getting a divorce. His dad may be incarcerated, whatever it is. And so just like drawing the line, like I don't care what happened to you as a player, I've got to be able to separate player coach from somebody that is supporting you and just unconditionally supporting you. I think there also has to be a consistency there of care. And you have to be able to, even if you're not what I thought you were as a player, I still got your back as a person.
No, you're right, and that becomes hard, especially if you're not having the success you want to have in the year, because as a coach, our livelihood is on the lines.
For sure. And
we are dependent on young men, ages 18 and now. Let's just extend it to say 24 maybe.
Casey
right?
Thompson in football, 25 right now.
Let's say 18, 24, which is a very volatile age. Our livelihoods depend on it. Our families, our kids, the food we put on our table depends on it. So when you have that much pressure, when you have that much expectation, it can turn the other way quickly, right? To where because a young man maybe not performing as well as you want him on the floor, it could affect how you feel about him off the court. It's natural. But I think some of the best coaches are able to navigate that, separate it, still care, still love, and that young person also understand that, hey, you're not doing what you want on the basketball court. That's not going to affect how it happens off the court. It's hard. It's tough. It's reality. And it's one of those things that makes coaching difficult.
For sure.
Right? Being able to balance those two things. So the ones who can do it are really good.
Yeah. Well said, Coach.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Any parting words as we sign off episode 3, week 3 of 12 Only?
Yeah, no, just as you watch these games, just to appreciate the coaches, just look for the adjustments. This league, one of the reasons it's the best league is because it has the best coaches. And so you're not going to see a team just fall off the rails because the quality of adjustments and then also the talent of the players. Like this week, for example, I don't know who TCU's plays, but I'm excited to see.
First game.
I'm excited to see Tennyson. I'm excited to see Jameer Nelson because I know those guys are going to figure out a way to find their stride. And TCU as a team, how they respond, or teams that have taken some L's. Just appreciate the greatness of the competition and the quality of coaching.
Well said. I think for me, I think what is great about college basketball right now is I said this earlier, and I'm gonna say it again, is the separation that occurs. Right. The teams that are chasing championship How do they progress? How do they sustain? How are they consistent? The teams that are jockeying for seeding in the middle, how do they show consistency? How do they play against some of these teams that are chasing championship? They try to knock them off, or they content? And then the ones who aren't in contention, the ones who are at the bottom, are they able to keep it together, continue to have that competitive character, and leave it all out on the floor? Because when they get to March, right, that first, maybe that second weekend of March, when that Big 12 tournament happens, anything's possible, right? So if you can keep your guys focused to the best of their ability to be able to make a run, if you're not in that contention right now, then you create what we call havoc. And that's what March is all about.
Yeah, no doubt. Well said. Another episode in the books next week.
Yep, let's do it.
Why not?